Welcome to another victory edition of 41 is the Mic. I am Mad Derrick alongside formal wear enthusiast Nick Jacobs. Nick, it is officially the postseason, so you are breaking out the official formal wear.
Yeah. You got to bring out the formal wear when things get real. So that's what I'm doing right now with my tuxedo T-shirt. We're getting formal, but we're also here to have fun. You could say party because you don't know what type of party it's going to be. Could be, could be a happy one. Could be a going away party for the season. You hope it's not, but you don't know. But either way, you want to dress prim and proper for the event. So that's what I decided to do for Wild Card Weekend.
We've got a short week, so I mean we gotta deal with things quickly because we have to move on from Chiefs Chargers pretty fast because Saturday and the Dolphins is going to be here before you know it.
I moved on from the Chargers game about a series or two into it. That's where I was today. I get more excited for preseason games than I did for the Chiefs Chargers game today, and that's very rare for me.
There's some season finales that are meaningless. I do just kind of, just go in one ear and out the other. But this one I actually enjoyed. I mean, even though it was a snooze fest, and I've probably seen some puppy bowls that were more intense than this game. But you got to see a lot of the Chiefs youngsters. You got to see some young linebackers. Cam Jones was all over the place. So I was pretty impressed by that since we hadn't really got to see a lot of Cam Jones, but he looked good. Certainly it was not much of an offensive slugfest. Blaine Gabbert had a really nice drive at the end to get the Chiefs in the field goal range for the game winner. Didn't see much of the Chiefs starting receivers. This was mostly a Justin Ross, Richie James, a little Justin Watson. I mean, what was your kind of takeaway from all this, Nick? I mean, we didn't get to see a lot of the big names.
Yeah, I will do a little bit of analysis on there, but what I'll say is with Blaine Gabbert was, you could tell he hadn't been in a game situation since August. Like he was really rusty. He was high and wide on throws, very inaccurate. What he looked like on the field was what I saw up at camp at times. And and I'm not knocking him on it because that's to be expected with with how often he hasn't been in a game situation this season. So, but man, it was funny watching him take off the scramble there in the fourth quarter a couple of times. And like he's just huffing and puffing after that second one. He's like, man, I haven't had to run like this in practice. Oh man, this is a lot more cardio than I was expecting. So yeah, no, I mean that was interesting. It just it was kind of a reality check in some regards that like, hey, not this is what it looks like when a quarterback doesn't get to play every single week. So, and it also made sure you had no doubt that there is no quarterback controversy in Kansas City. You're not going to have to worry about it. Mahomes has had a certain level of play that we've just come to expect at the quarterback spot, and you saw the drop off from it. So there was that. I was happy McCole Hardman got as many reps as he did, got as many throws as he did, even if they weren't the most efficient or best throws. And like the situational awareness on that one play where he stepped out of bounds and then caught the pass and everything and hadn't kind of reset himself back in and everything. I'm glad he went through those this week instead of when each play mattered and it was going to be a problem. Justin Ross had one of those catches. He had was an outstanding catch, just really, really impressive. And then, he had some other ones that weren't in the vicinity of his catch radius and it wasn't on him. So there's that part of it. But the biggest thing I loved more than anything else was how they rotated the offensive linemen around and had series where they played different spots. So you saw Creed Humphrey at guard. So Joe Tooney at tackle at one point. You had Nick Allegretti at center. Then I can't remember if he went to guard. And then you had Caliendo in some spots. And like they just rotated, and Lucas Niang getting playing time. That's what I wanted to see from the offensive line, because in a moment's notice during this playoff run, they may need somebody to go into any specific spot or somebody to move over. So those snaps are the thing that made me the happiest about what the Chiefs did today. But I will also say, seeing what I did from a lot of the guys who aren't the starters on the team, especially on offense, the Chiefs got a lot of work in the offseason depth-wise.
Yeah, I mean, some of the work on the offensive lines and rotation wasn't exactly necessarily by design. When they lose
I'm
Wanya
going to
Morris
pretend it is, Matt. Okay. Spinning it positively.
well, we do have to, before we, really start looking forward to next week, have to consider the injuries, because that was one thing of concern that did come out of this game. Wanya Morris leaves with a concussion. He's in the league's concussion protocol. Jawan Taylor briefly left the game after he got rolled up on his knee, it looked like, and he did come back in, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that, hey, sometimes when the adrenaline wears off and the tape comes off and everything, sometimes those things can swell. So, and it is a short turnaround. I mean, he doesn't have until Wednesday to recover. They're going to be back on the field on Tuesday for practice. So we will see with those guys. Now, conversely, I mean, the Chiefs may be getting Donovan Smith back, and maybe that was the plan all along for him to return for the postseason. But yes, getting Lucas Niang the experience, and like you mentioned, I mean, hey, if you need Joe Tooney at left tackle in the postseason, he got some reps. Like I said, might not have been a plan, but that's at least something that worked out. And Andy Heck did do a lot of rotation on that offensive line, that if they do need to do some rotation. Jalen Watson, Andy Reid did mention after the game, took a helmet to the calf, so that's worth monitoring as well. And Justin Ross, even though I don't think he's going to be a big player as far as snap counts go in the postseason, I don't think that's the plan, but he had the hamstring on him. We'll see how that develops. Those are the injuries to watch going forward this week. But yeah, I mean, Nick, you moved on from the Chargers, a couple of series in, and we might as well move on to the Dolphins, because that is what is coming up, and it's a quick one. Saturday night on the Peacock Network, and proud as a Peacock KSHB 41. If you're in Kansas City, you'll be able to watch the game. A team we know well, Nick. We know these Dolphins.
Yeah. So, yes, you will be able to watch the game locally if you're in the Kansas City market, on KSHB 41. Again, I repeat, if you're in the Kansas City market, you will be able to watch it on KSHB 41. Otherwise, you'll have to watch it on Peacock. And again, if you get KSHB 41 at your house right now, and you can watch it, that means that you're part of the local barometer of that.
Yeah, the only place that's going to be on local TV are going to be in the local markets for Miami and Kansas City. So if you are not in one of those two cities, you'll need to explore your options for signing up for Peacock. I don't know if they have free trials anymore. They used to, but might just need a quick subscription, or maybe hit the sports bar, because outside of Kansas City and Miami, that is the only way you're going to get to watch this game.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you on that part, Matt. I really don't.
Well, let's talk about what we're expecting out of this, because we did get to see the Dolphins on Sunday night in their loss to the Buffalo Bills. To me, that game was, to me, very similar to a couple of other games that we saw during the season. One was the first time that the Bills and Dolphins met. The Bills have a pretty good game plan for how to deal with the Dolphins, and they put it into action once again. They really shut down the Miami offense, especially in the second half. And it reminded me of what the Chiefs did, because the Chiefs did a lot of the same things that the Bills did the first time around, and the Chiefs also had one of the better defensive outings against the Dolphins this year. This is a Dolphins team that is kind of limping into the postseason, not just injury wise and defensively, but now offensively. I mean, this was a struggle for them tonight.
Yeah, and like you said, I think you said that perfectly, because if you've been watching Hard Knocks on HBO Max, like Tua, when he was throwing a couple weeks ago, I can't remember if it was the Cowboys game or another game, he smacked his hand on a helmet and it swelled up, and he was having some gripping issues with that. And so he had that, and he had the normal bumps and bruises that every quarterback has, taking hits. And then obviously Tyreek's had the ankle injury for multiple weeks now, and was even in that walking boot when he went to go check on his house while it was on fire, or the fire was being put out this past week. And yeah, the amount of weight that he put on that ankle when he was landing against the Ravens, like that had a lot of force to it. And I know he really struggled with that the past game. And Look, Tyreek is such a unique individual in terms of how that guy bounces back after he's had an injury for a week. Just whatever he does to be able to perform at the level he still does and have that same level of speed that he does is actually pretty impressive. So I don't know how he's done it, but that guy can bounce back quicker than a lot of other players somehow can. So props to him on that one. But no, I mean, yeah, Tyreek Hill's he's the key to a lot of that offense. And then, this time around, I don't believe A-Chain was a part of the Chiefs' last game in Germany. I think he was hurt at the time.
Yep.
So I mean, that's a part that I'll be nervous about in terms of speed, some of the screen passes, and kind of getting him out in space against the Chiefs linebackers. I think that's going to be a really huge matchup. And then we'll see where Jalen Waddle's at health wise. I think they were willing to keep him out this past week simply so that they had him for the playoffs because they knew they were going to get in the playoffs. Just didn't know where they're going to get in the playoffs at. So, I mean, it's really unfortunate that part of it is it's unfortunate that they lost the opportunity they did to host a home playoff game in the wild card round. Like, to go from a 2 seed to a 6 seed like that, I know that's got to, some of the players look deflated after the game about just what opportunity they just lost. But then the other crazy part of it is, had they won, they would have played the Bills again in Miami the following week. So like that's the weird thing is like the game an opportunity to kind of step back for a minute. But the thing that's crazy is if we look at it, say if the Chiefs win and the Bills win, Chiefs are going to Buffalo. Or, we'll see on that one. Because the other thing is, depending who wins Browns Texans, because if the Steelers upset, now I'm running through my head right now and I apologize, but if the Steelers upset the Bills somehow, then yeah, the Steelers will play the Ravens and then the Chiefs will play the winner of the Texans Browns. So
Yep.
That's going to be its own interesting thing. But yeah, no, I mean, the Chiefs right now, if all the high seeds remain, the Chiefs' path to the Super Bowl goes through the Miami at Arrowhead, then potentially on the road against Buffalo, then potentially on the road in Baltimore. That's quite the trifecta to have to face. And if the Browns get thrown into that mix too, that's whether they play them at Arrowhead or not, that's a whole nother interesting thing where it'd be 3 potential AFC North teams and the Chiefs. So that's interesting. You got a lot of AFC East, a lot of AFC North, so that's all going to be very intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just talking about the favorites coming out of Wild Card Weekend, then yes, it would be the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Browns. And in that scenario, the Browns go to Baltimore, and the Chiefs would go to Buffalo. So yeah, I mean, conceivably, the Chiefs' path to an AFC Championship game would most likely be hosting Browns if they're able to knock off the Ravens. That's probably some big assumptions because the Browns did not fare well against the Ravens during the regular season. I mean, the Ravens handled them at least once, and the second time was at least a little bit closer. But we'll see how it goes with Joe Flacco and everything like that. But I feel like that right now, at least, those two teams are on different levels. Chiefs and Bills, we know, I mean, they're I think 2 evenly matched teams. And obviously they were 1 penalty away from the Chiefs being the 2 seed. I mean, that's how close these teams are. I mean, had Kadarius Toney not gotten flagged in that game and that touchdown had stood the Kelsey to Toney, Chiefs are the 2 seed. So
you know what else is funny about that play?
And Kelsey also would have had 1,000-yard season.
There it is, man. I was wondering if you thought about that too. That play alone, potentially cost him another 1,000-yard season. Doesn't mean things wouldn't have been differently down the road, and maybe he still doesn't get it. So I can't put all the eggs in that basket. But with what we know and what has happened, that was one of the plays that kept that ended that streak.
Yeah, that's when you start talking about the butterfly flapping its wings, Nick, that butterfly that night was a big, nasty moth. It wasn't a butterfly, it was a moth.
Okay. Or was it locust?
Might have been a locust. Yeah, I mean, to me, watching these games over the weekend, and this is something that, to me, I do have a concern about the Chiefs going forward, and I'm kind of curious about what your take on it is, because we have seen the Chiefs in their past playoff runs have at times come out flat in their first game. And this is going to be another example of, the Chiefs are coming off a week 18 game in which they essentially didn't play the starters and it was just the backups. And they've got a lot of guys who did not play today. And they're going to be hosting a Dolphins team that is coming off a playoff game. I mean, that was a playoff game tonight in Miami between them and the Bills. As you mentioned, the Dolphins, hey, we're on the deflated end of it. So maybe that's a factor there. The Chiefs will at least have the one benefit of that. This will not be a team that has more rest than they do, which would have been the case if the Steelers were coming in. They would have had a full extra day of rest for the Chiefs. But just curious how you feel about that. I mean, how important is it going to be for the Chiefs to get out to a quick start, especially against a team that, is already in playoff mode?
So there's three parts to take into account for this one. It is going to be cold at Arrowhead that night with what the temperatures are projecting right now.
Yes, it is.
And you want to know what? Here's the reputation for the Dolphins. I'm not saying that this is going to be the case that night because it's any given weekend. I'm just going to call it weekend because it's going to be on a Saturday instead of Sunday. But the Dolphins aren't exactly known for their toughness, especially against good teams and down the stretch. That's not what they've been known for this year. Doesn't mean they can't turn around in the playoffs, but that's not what they're known for right now. So you're coming out in potentially below 15 degree or lower weather. I'm not going to say below, but lower than maybe 15 degrees outside. I don't know how the coaching staff for Miami is going to be able to prepare for that unless they put them inside the indoor practice facility and turn the AC to freezing. That may be the way they have to prepare them for that. So that's just something that for the Chiefs, the best thing they can do is get physical. And I mean physical with them on defense quickly, physical with them in the Chiefs run game, and just go after them and then set that tempo, because whenever you're out there and it's cold and there's hard hitting and everything, people feel that. People feel that in their bones. They feel that in their arms. There's some aching pretty quickly. So that's something mindset wise. When Andy Reid and them go out and practice, the more they can be outdoors this week and have the guys used to that and ready for that and have that available to them. This is the week where they got to take advantage of that. Because you and I both know they got a day outdoors last week when it was cold, and I was very happy to see that because I'm like, hey, that's what you're going to face at Arrowhead, so might as well work in it if you can, and they did. So I was happy to see that part of it. So I'm telling you, that the cold's going to be a bigger factor than we realize, and some of those hits Tua may take in that cold weather. Oh boy, he's not going to be a fan of that. And I'm trying to think, has Tua played? Because I know he didn't play in the playoff game last year when they lost to the Bills. I'm trying to remember if he played in one the previous season. I don't think, because Miami, I think this is Tua's first time in playing in a playoff game himself.
I believe you are right, and we'll look it up. I was looking at the weather in which the Dolphins have played this season, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the coldest game they've played all year was back in November, playing at the Jets when it was 48 degrees at kickoff. They had a couple of games on the road at Washington and at Baltimore in December, but the games, those kickoff times were the temperatures were in the 50s. Not going to be that way in Kansas City on Saturday night. It's going to be cold. Maybe there's a 25% chance of snow as well. So we'll see what happens. And you're right. I mean, the Chiefs will get an opportunity to work out in some cold. I would imagine if the forecast comes through as expected, I would imagine that would be indoors on Tuesday because that is going to be the nastiest day. But they should at least get an opportunity on Wednesday and or Thursday to get out
and whatever they do Friday for game situation stuff
and for a walkthrough and everything. Yeah. So this is not going to be the Dolphins kind of weather. This is not going to be their jam, Nick.
And that's what you want this time of the year. And you gotta instill that in their mind early. You gotta put that in their mind that it's cold outside. You gotta make them miserable with that temperature. And that is number one, as lesson number one that you've got to do, and the tempo you've got to set to really kind of get this party started, Matt.
And that's why, I mean, I feel like getting off to a quick start is going to be critical. And that's something that the Chiefs have struggled with at times in the postseason, in their first playoff games after maybe having a layoff, whether it was been a bye or whether it has been kind of taking it easy a little bit in the final week of the regular season. They're not going to have that luxury. I mean, they need to come out hard hitting. And you're right. I mean, this is an opportunity to take a warm weather team and make them miserable from the very beginning. And this Chiefs team, especially defensively, has that attitude. So that's why I mean, a lot's going to be on the offense. They're going to need to be the ones that really come through, and because the offense has obviously had some mistakes this season, they need to be able to play mistake-free football. But my goodness, this Chiefs defense against the Dolphins offense in the cold seems like a bit of a mismatch.
Yeah. So the last time the Dolphins were in this level of cold weather is back in 2017 when Alex Smith was still the quarterback, a day before Christmas, and it was 23 degrees outside. So, I mean, most of the guys, I'm looking through that roster right now, and pretty much almost none of those guys. Xavier Howard might be the only guy of them seeing here on the list that actually played in that game, and the Dolphins lost that one 29-13 at Arrowhead Stadium. So yeah, I'm just telling you, man, like that's gonna be the toughest part. I know, but I will be excited. I'm excited to watch Hard Knocks this week because I've been watching it every week, but I'm excited to see the prep they put in for this Bills game and what happened in the Bills game. Because for people that don't know, Hard Knocks turns stuff within 2 days of the game itself, which is really impressive turnaround to get that done for the game being over tonight, and the fact they'll have Monday and part of Tuesday before it airs Tuesday night. So I'm curious to see that one. I'm sure a lot of Chiefs fans are going to start watching now if they haven't already. And then I'm really excited to, regardless of what happens with the Chiefs game, I'm really excited to see the end result of the work that the Dolphins put in that week on the following Tuesday after they've played the Chiefs. Because the Chiefs Dolphins game in Germany, they didn't start it then. They started it after the bye week. So like you didn't get to see that week of prep and everything. And part of me kind of wonders if that wasn't on purpose because they thought they were going to play him again. I remember hearing that week after the game, both teams thought they'd see each other again down the road in the playoffs and everything. But we all know one guy that's going to be used to to that cold. And we know one guy that's going to be amped up for that game. And everybody's going to want to win for him, and that's going to be Tyreek Hill returning home to Kansas City, or not necessarily. I mean, a home for a while, wasn't a home forever.
Yeah. What kind of reaction do you think that Tyreek is going to get in Kansas City?
I think he's going to get booed. I think he's going to get booed for some of the things he said on his podcast, and I don't think he's going to get the warm reception that he's hoping for. Had he not said some of the stuff on his podcast, I think he would have been fine. But he's just constantly talked about the Chiefs over the 2-year span since he left here, and so it'll be interesting. I mean, Chiefs locker room's going to get asked about it all week, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting, and then of course on top of it, you're going to have Melvin Ingram, who's going to be coming back to Kansas City. And then there's another person, I believe Emmanuel Ogbah will be coming back as well. So you get a couple Super Bowl champions returning to where they won their title or their ring.
Not to mention another fan favorite, Eli Apple, coming back to Kansas City.
Yeah, I think people forgot about that one pretty much. That one I don't. Yeah, people may boo him if they hear his name, if they hear his name, they might boo him. But
right, but it might just depend on how much trash talking he does this week to acquaint himself with the Chiefs and their fans.
Well, with him not being in Cincinnati, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he still does or not.
he might be a little bit more chill, and especially since Tyreek's a teammate of his now, so we can't trash talk Tyreek anymore.
Yeah, he's got to do it to the Chiefs wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. I
Yeah,
mean, there's only one Chiefs receiver that is on the active roster that played with Tyreek, right? And that would be McCole. I'm not missing anybody. I mean, Cornell Powell's on the practice squad.
right.
So that room has been totally rebuilt. So it's not like we're going to be able to go to the wide receiver part of the room and ask a lot of questions about Tyreek. But, Patrick and the guys who've been around for a while certainly will.
No, that's a great point because Spagnuolo is going to get asked about him again. And and then Dave Tobe loves Tyreek as a returner. So Tobe's going to end up having to talk about him. Then, the defense haven't played him this year. They'll get asked a lot of questions about him. And then Chris Jones will get asked some questions about him if he's at the podium or what ends up happening in that regard. So I mean, there's gonna be a lot of Tyreek Hill questions this week. That's for sure.
There will, but I can't see any trash talking coming out of the Chiefs. I mean, if for no other reason than one, I think that Andy Reid's going to clamp down on that once again to say, hey, this is business. It's not personal. So tighten it up. But the other thing is that Tyreek was well liked in that locker room. So the people who are still on this team that he played with, I don't think any animosity there between them.
Yeah, I don't think there's much ill will at all.
So I mean, the one that could potentially be the guy that could say something might be, a L'Jarius Sneed or Willie Gay sometimes has a little bit too much fun, but I can't say either one of them saying anything that's going to try and step on Tyreek's cape.
No, I think they'll lay low this week on anything about him other than him being a good player. So just so people know, whenever they're like, why don't you ask the hard, tough questions or everything? Matt and I have been in the locker room enough over the years. We can ask it, but we still know what the response is going to be. So I'm just telling you in advance that you know what response is more than likely going to happen most of the time.
Yes, you can predict them, and I'm expecting nothing but a lot of flowery comments about Tyreek this week. And honestly, I mean, like I said, I mean, I think a lot of it's going to be legitimate because this coaching staff and the players in that locker room have a lot of respect for him. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of trash talk. But what we talked a little bit about the Dolphin speed. What's going to keep you up awake this week, Nick? Worrying about this game.
Well, putting our shows together, Road to Vegas this week. That'll keep me busy. Making sure we put out the best Chiefs content possible in case HB 41 ahead of the game that'll be on our air. So there will be that. But that's a labor of love, Matt. A labor of love. So there's that part. But I mean, look, the speed on the Dolphins. I mean, it's no joke on offense. It's just a matter of the fact that Chiefs are facing the Dolphins a second time around. Is there stuff that Steve Spagnuolo is going to throw at him that he didn't in the first matchup that can kind of keep Tua guessing? How do they get physical with some of the receivers to kind of keep them in check? And then more than anything, like I said earlier, just that speed at running back against the Chiefs linebackers. How are they going to counter it with? Are they going to give Drew Tranquill the proper amount of snaps so that he can help counter it with his speed that he has available? Or are they going to put, how's Willie Gay going to be involved in that? Because if you're getting Nick Bolton isolated against the speed they have a running back, that's already a mismatch, and Leo Chanel is going to do the best he can, but that's a mismatch as well. So those are my number one concerns. That's where I'm going to be the most nervous. I mean, look, Tyreek Hill's going to make some plays. He's going to make some catches. That's going to be on either Snead or McDuffie or whoever to get physical with him and to make that happen. But look, I mean, I'm expecting to see some guys look a little bit fresher this upcoming week than people realize, just because of having to be able to be out there, having that rest that they did. I think that's going to do wonders for like a L'Jarius Snead, a Travis Kelce, a Patrick Mahomes. I think they'll look a little bit sharper than what we're anticipating simply because of that. But the fact that Tyreek Hill's coming here and it's the Dolphins and all that type of stuff, like I'm personally expecting this team to be pretty amped up for it, because they're not getting somebody that you think is a slouch. Like they're this is where it's go time, and we'll see if they turn it on. One guy that I know I have no doubt in my mind will be ready to be Rashee Rice. It's just a matter of how long does it take him to acclimate to that speed and that intensity. Like I think that's going to be for some of those rookies. I think that's going to be a little part of the puzzle that they won't know until they experience it. May have an idea, but when it happens, they're going to be like, "Oh, okay."
There is that, and you know, and you mentioned Devon Achane earlier on. I mean, that's the one piece to me that is going to be the new piece that the Chiefs didn't see the first time around, that they are going to have to get adjusted to, because he does have a different speed and a different element than Mostert does. And if they have Mostert back and they have Jalen Waddle back, I mean, you will be talking about the Dolphins maybe being back to somewhat full strength. But like you mentioned, I mean, it's hard to believe that the Tyreek that we saw tonight is going to be 100% next week,
Right.
especially in the cold. You know, the Tua that we saw tonight being 100%. This is a banged up Dolphins team, and the Chiefs are going to have to take advantage of that. They're going to have to worry about on their own side too. I mean, you mentioned Rashee Rice, and of course, I'm just thinking about the Texas kid in his first maybe 0-degree game. I don't know. I don't know how many games that he played in this weather in the Big 12, or not in the Big 12, but at TCU. SMU. Gosh, I can't even keep track.
Yeah.
It's been a long day, Nick. Long day.
Good. You're good, sir.
It's week 18 in my mind, apparently. But
Yeah.
we shall see. Any?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think the Chiefs need to do to be successful and come away with a win this week?
I mean, my expectations for this team winning in the playoffs is really twofold. And I think that they can win if they do these two things. One of them is play defense the way that they've played defense all season. If this team plays even just its average defensive effort, I think it can win. But the other thing it has to do is it has to treat that football like it is a precious baby, because they cannot make the mistakes and the turnovers that they have made all season long in the playoffs, because that is a recipe for disaster. If they lose the turnover battle, I'm not even sure if they can afford to split it. I mean, I think they have to win the turnover battle the way that this team has just moved offensively. But if they lose the turnover battle, I have no faith that this team can win a postseason game.
And so then my next point for you is what are you most concerned about headed into this game outside of the turnover part? What has you personally nervous about? Boy, I don't know if they're going to overcome this part in the playoffs.
I would say that to me, it's especially against a team like the Dolphins, it's going to be playing run defense. I mean, that's the one area that this team I feel like has had some letdowns at times. I think that the pass defense that is absolutely not a problem, but if this team gives up a big play on the ground game, can they stop a team when it's a team's trying to run out the clock in the fourth quarter? They're going to need to get off the field. They may have to get off the field at some point when a team's just trying to run the football on them. And that's what we need to see this team do to me. I mean, I need to see them make sure that they don't give up any big plays in the ground game, and I need to see them be able to get off the field when necessary when a team's trying to run out the clock.
Yeah. For me, first and foremost is one, they're going to have to put, multiple efficient drives together. And like I'm not just talking about one or two like they did in Germany. Like they're going to have to figure out a way to at minimum score 24 points. And I know it sounds weird to say, but like that has to be the goal mentally this week. This is what they have to get to, just to keep themselves in the ball game and go from there. Because part of it is you don't have Brian Cook. You're likely not going to have Brian Cook this week to be able to return it 90 plus yards. It's going to have to be somebody else if that happens. And then like on top of it, like you're not going to have McKinnon, and he's not going to be able to help you on some of those plays like he did in the previous Germany game. So like this is the point where the wide receivers determine who comes back in 2024. The wide receivers are going to determine like who can step up in this moment. Is it McCole Hardman? Is it going to be Rashee Rice? Like, can Travis Kelce be able to be a little bit more explosive now that he's had a week of rest, and be able to kind of do what he needs to. Can Mahomes be just as sharp, and can he toe that line between when he needs to thread that needle for that play that maybe wins the game, just like the Steelers have with Deontay Johnson and Mason Rudolph let that thing go for a 70-yard touchdown that ended up winning them the game and got them into the playoffs? Or are the Chiefs wanting to play more conservative and Patrick stays on the conservative side so they can try to win by a couple extra field goals? The creativity on red zone offense this week for the Chiefs has to be there in a way it has not been there all season. Like, everything in short yardage has to be creative, everything in red zone. And I'm not talking like snap into the running back who tosses it back. I'm talking like get yourself in formations that you can create openings for a receiver to catch the ball or a running back. I don't care. But like, let's say it this way, this is kitchen sink week. You at minimum need to get out of the wild card with a win for me to consider it like, an okay season. And like, I know they want to get to the Super Bowl and everything, but if you get bounced in the first round, there's going to be a lot of people ha-haing and saying the Chiefs have fallen, and that's what you're going to have to hear all off season from that. They still may say that if the Chiefs don't get back to the Super Bowl, but if the Chiefs are able to take down the Dolphins and whatever happens after that point and get back to conference championship, then, then other people, they'll be, oh, let's enforce that loss in the conference championship. But yeah, no, this is a week where they cannot mess around. You got to establish the tempo run game wise. Like you said, hold on to the football. You cannot have turnovers against the Dolphins, and you need to treat that thing like it depends on your employment. And then on top of that, defensively, they got to figure out a way to force some turnovers. They got to get that ball away from Tua or whoever the ball carrier is, punch that ball out like they did against the Chargers and Easton Stick earlier, and turn that into a touchdown. Like they've got to set the tempo. They got to create the force against the Dolphins, and they've got to do some things even more intently than they did in Germany to rattle Tua. Because when Tua's in rhythm, he can make some of those throws off his first and second read. Chiefs did a really good job taking him out of his rhythm in Germany, but then on top of it, they also did a good job of getting them in third and medium and third and longs. Like those are the keys of what the Chiefs are going to have to do, and those linebackers got to figure out a way to be able to cover in space. So against the running backs. So yeah, those are my things, and like I hope the Chiefs are able to run on them. I hope the Chiefs lean on them, and I hope the Chiefs get physical with them. But more than anything else, I think it's going to come down to, can the Chiefs defense force a couple turnovers, and can the Chiefs offense in the red zone punch those in for 7 instead of 3 at least 4 times. I know that sounds crazy to say, but I think that's the reality of where you're going to have to, that's what you're going to have to do to come away with a victory.
Yeah, this can't be a game where the offense doesn't get into the end zone. It can't be a game where they settle for field goals. They absolutely have to convert in the red zone. But I'm with you. I mean, if you told me after this game, you were going to tell me that, hey, Trip McDuffie forced a turnover and Patrick Mahomes did not turn the ball over at all, I'm going to assume the Chiefs are winning this game.
Hope so. All I know is if I'm in front of that team, it's statement week now. The entire world is watching. The entire world doesn't believe in you. The whole league doesn't believe in you. And nobody thinks that you can make it back to the Super Bowl. Nobody thinks that you are the defending champions. They've already written you off nationally this year. And some people may have written you just off in general. So now's the time where you decide if you're going to shut some people up and you're going to do what needs to be done to take back and maintain the crown that you're currently wearing on your head from being the defending champions, or are you going to prove them right? And all that hard work that you put in the offseason, all that stuff that you did to try to reach this moment, are you going to make it worth it? Or are you going to make it for not? And something that eats at you in the offseason, and something you've got to deal with, just like that Colts running back, Goodson and Gardner Minshew are going to have to deal with, where they got themselves bounced from the playoffs because they dropped that pass on 4th and 1. Or the Jacksonville Jaguars that went into a pure tailspin and lost 5 or 6 games. I think it's 6 games from their bye week in early November until then, and basically lost their way out of the playoffs. So I think that that's the question that each player's got to ask themselves this week, and it's going to be interesting. Like this is it. This is what you've been doing this whole year for this moment. So are you going to turn on that switch and not look back and not look in the rearview mirror and make the statement that you need to make, or are you going to prove people right in a bad way?
Well, and when you frame it that way, I can safely say from covering this guy since the beginning of his NFL career, that is usually when you have just portrayed a situation where Patrick Mahomes goes into the phone booth and comes out as Superman. So we will see which Patrick Mahomes we get in the playoffs this week.
And I'll say this: Patrick Mahomes ain't the guy that I'm nervous about. It's some of the supporting cast. Are they willing to put their tuxedo T-shirts on, or are they willing, or no, and show that they're formal and they're here to handle some business, try to win another Lombardi and Super Bowl ring, or are they just along for the ride until they tell them that this is their stop that they get off at?
Well, it's time to stand on business, Nick. Is that the phrase these days?
If that's what feels right in your heart, Matt, you go for it, sir.
Well, we've got both of us will have a busy week of bringing you Chiefs news throughout this week because, like we mentioned, because of the short week, team will be at it on Tuesday. I will be having my Q&A live on YouTube on Tuesday night, so you can catch it there. We'll be talking about some of the things that we learned on Tuesday, and then the Chiefs will be having their media periods Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then they'll be quiet for the most part on Friday. That's when they'll make their transactions for if there's any practice squad elevations, anything of that nature coming up, and then game time on Saturday. So a busy week for us, Nick, because you also got those pregame and postgame shows for the Chiefs on KSHP 41 on Saturday.
I know starting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have Road to Vegas, 6:45 to 7.
Underway.
Friday, 6:30 to 7 on KSP 41. We'll be doing another Road to Vegas, and then we'll have announcements on what's going to happen Saturday later on.
We have got a lot of excitement for you.
You will be able to see the Chiefs versus Dolphins game on TV locally if you're in the Kansas City market.
That's right. Do not forget that. All right. Any other parting words, Nick?
You will be able to see the Chiefs and Dolphins game locally on KSHP 41.
I think we need a graphic or something that says that. So
I got it on Twitter, man. I'm putting it everywhere right now.
There you go.
Things went sideways real quick on the social medias.
Well, we appreciate you once again joining us. Appreciate everybody's the kind words everybody's been sharing with us too. If you can follow, subscribe, like, do all that stuff to help people discover the podcast, we truly appreciate it. For myself and Nick Jacobs,
I bid you adieu, Matt.
have a great week, everybody, and we will keep coming back at you after Chiefs and Dolphins next Saturday.